Perfect. Welcome to another episode of The Latest with Maya. Today, I am so excited to have a conversation with writer Jeff Astrof. Jeff has created some of my favorite shows, Trial and Error and Shining Vale, and has written for several more shows that I love, including Friends and The New Adventures of Old Christine. Thank you so much for being on my show. I am so excited to be talking with you.
That's not, I have to say, I do a lot of interviews, and this is one of the ones I'm most excited about.
Oh,
So I
thank
hope I
you.
don't let you down. It's up to ball to my court to let you down.
Um, so let's get started. So who has had the biggest impact on the person you have become?
Wow, that is such a gigantic question to start. The biggest impact, I would say my wife, actually. I'm very, very blessed. I've always had like a very bad picker in terms of the people I kind of partnered with. And by the grace of God, I found this incredible woman like now close to 25 years ago. And I had to ask my friends, I was like, should I marry her? And my friend said, no, she's way too good for you. And everybody loved her. I just didn't trust myself anymore. And I believe in relationships that people have a whole range of how they could behave, and my wife brings out the best in me. So I think that's not even a question.
Oh, I love that.
I know it's very crazy. People don't know what she did to deserve this part, but I have a great marriage. My
Oh,
half of it's amazing.
yeah.
She has the hardest job in Hollywood being married to me, but
I love that. Um, so I rewatch Trial and Error all
uh,
the time,
thank you.
and it never fails to make me laugh. How did the idea for this show come about?
So it was like everything else that came about through procrastination. Like I'd say probably now, it's so funny. I've been telling the story for so long, and I don't have a great sense of time, as you'll know when I talk for 2 hours. That it probably, I guess probably like 12 years ago, whenever there was a documentary going around writers' room called The Staircase, about Michael Peterson, who was allegedly he just like this small town poetry professor in the South who shockingly you find out that his wife died a brutal death in his house. And then every single episode after that, there's a twist that is so shocking that you're either convinced he did it or convinced he didn't do it. And my sister and I became obsessed with it so much that I have a file on my phone saying called the Peterson case, where we were going to go down to North Carolina and try to solve this thing. And because we were so intrigued, I got in touch with the lawyers. Eventually, I got in touch with Michael Peterson himself. And I got so obsessed with it. I thought this is such cool television. And I was looking for a project to do. And I said to my wife, I remember watching it, and I said, if this starred Steve Carell, this would be the funniest show you've ever seen. And my wife, who usually when I have an idea says, okay, like she's always supportive, but she's like, I don't see it yet. She laughed. She said, "Oh, that would be funny." So I went and I pitched it to. I was at Warner Brothers at the time, and I said, "I want to do. Have you ever seen The Staircase?" No. Watch The Staircase. I showed it to them. They said, "Okay, what do you want? Why do you want us to watch it?" I said, "I think it would be a great comedy." And they basically chased me out of the office for 3 years. They said, "It's not a comedy. We don't want you doing drama." I would love to be able to do a drama, by the way. And I go, "No, it's a comedy. It's like it's this." I said, "Like it has the thing that makes comedy great in my mind is stakes." And the stakes could not be higher. It's a man's life or death. It's literally life or death. And I said, like, the stakes are built in, the characters already are so distinct, and all you have to do is like turn them 15 degrees and it'll be hilarious. And they said, no, go develop another multicam about your life. So I did, and that didn't go. And I came back to them and they said no, and I developed another multicam. And finally I wore them down and they said, fine, you could develop this, but you have to also develop a multicam. So I did, which didn't go. And then right around that time, Making a Murderer came out and Serial came out, and it was right in the zeitgeist. And so it just happened to be like when I created this that, true crime documentaries became very, very hot. And I had one that was a comedy. I mean, it's the kind of idea that every sitcom writer, which I love it. Like if I had seen Trial and Error, I would hate the person who created it. I'd be so mad I didn't create it. Because it's just so like so in the sweet spot of what every comedy writer wants to do. I mean, it's just really, really silly. It's sweet. The stakes are high, and it's just, it's how I like to write. It has like six jokes a page, and so it got picked up. They made me pair with a drama writer because they didn't trust me to write something so dramatic. Um, and I had never done anything like it before. I'd only done multi-camera. Multi-camera, if you know, and I'm sure you do because you speak to a lot of multi-camera, is with something with a live audience. And that's what I had done for the past 25 years up until that point. I only did things with an audience. So I had no experience. So they put me with this guy, Matt Miller, who was a former comedy writer who's now, he does stuff like Lethal Weapon and and he and I hit it off great. And he had some really, really great ideas. And we hit it off terrific. So we wrote it and it got picked up and then it was off to the races. But it's the whole thing. It's just like getting anything picked up, getting anything made is so difficult. It's so difficult, and now even more so. So we just really lucked out with the timing of it. Ironically, because I was so mad for the 5 years they told me I couldn't do it, or 3 years I told me I couldn't do it. But it turns out that I did it at the right time. And still to this day, people said, "Well, it was just before its time." I was like, "All right." That's what they say when something doesn't last. It was before its time. Better than being after its time, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, it's Trial and Error is one of my all-time favorite shows. My family and I we always like reference it just whenever, like all these jokes from the show. And I remember the day I finished Radiation, we rewatched the whole first
Oh.
season. That was how we celebrated.
Oh, that's amazing. That's so good to hear. That's so good to hear. I actually heard that. I had people come up to me years ago when they were on Friends saying that they were going through like chemo or radiation. They said they watched Friends and that made them laugh. And it's so like like for me, I'm honestly I'm just trying to pay my bills. That's the only skill I have is writing TV shows. But so it's really nice to hear that people it has like a deeper societal impact. Sometimes it can have a bad societal impact, but that's nice to hear, and I'm happy that it touched you in some way. I still have people, randomly will just go when a whiteboard comes out. I'll be in places and they'll just go murder board,
Yeah.
and it's so sweet to me. And also, you have to know
Yeah.
that I'm very lucky to work with great casts. I've always had that luck, and that cast right now, if I started a text I have a text chain, a trial and error cast text chain. And if I text anything on it, it's like feeding a fish tank of piranhas, like within seconds. It'll just bubble up. Like to this day, because every now and again there's, you know, I'll get like some kind of Google alert for trial and error. Usually I had to cancel my Google alert for trial and error during the pandemic because it was all coming up about drug trials. Um, but whenever I get something and someone's mentioned in it, I'll like post on the thing and it just erupts and send pictures back and forth and moments from the show and it's really as a family. I love them. I love that cast.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. Yeah,
The nicest
Nicholas
people.
D'Augusto was actually my 200th interview.
Oh my gosh.
Um, yeah,
Nick, the single best guy in the world.
yeah.
He is, I called him just a unicorn because we found like a great looking guy who could act, who was funny, who was sweet. He was just I would cast Nick again in a heartbeat. And I love it. I mean, he's just like a good, I'm generally not friends with too many actors because it's like they live on like different realities than I live in. But Nick is just incredible. He comes over to my house sometimes for Shabbat dinner and with his family. And he's just the he's the best. And in fact, I can't say it, but I had somebody in another cast of mine who kind of had a crush on him, and I invited the two of them over, and it was very fun.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
I
he's super sweet.
yeah.
I'll just tell you a very funny story. So when I was working with Matt Miller, my partner on Trial and Error, he was running Lethal Weapon, and Lethal Weapon was a very famously like there was a very big argument between the two guys who were starring in it, and they were just it was just it got really really nasty, and poor Matt was like so stressed out over it, and the texts that were going back and the recriminations going back and forth and everybody and the emails going, and Matt came up to Vancouver just to get away, just to visit me, and he's telling me about how difficult, that situation is. And then Nick DiAgosto just comes over and starts tickling me. I said, "You see what I have to deal with? I understand what it's like to have a hard cast." And just like that was Nick's. That's as aggressive as Nick ever got. He would just like randomly come over and tickle people. But he just the greatest guy. I'm so glad that. By the way, as soon as I got your DM that and I saw Nick DiAgosto, I was like, oh, I'm in, no matter what. I didn't know what you were selling or buying or doing, but I was like, if Nick is in, I'm in.
Oh, thank you.
And then when I went and looked at the other people, I was like, oh, I don't deserve this, but I'll go in under Nick's coattails.
Well, I've been wanting to interview you since Trial and Error, so I am so excited to be talking with you.
Likewise, I could tell you anything about anything you want to know. I'm an open book.
So, what are people surprised to learn about you?
What are people surprised to learn about me? It's so funny because I am a pretty open book, like I said. Like I'm very like I'll tell you what people are surprised to learn about me is that I don't love being the center of attention. Because if you read, they did an article about me in the Friends room a couple of years ago. They did an article about the Friends room, and I took up a lot of oxygen. I take up a lot of oxygen in rooms because I'm just like very I like pitching jokes a lot. And the truth is, like, if I'm out at a social event, like, I have no desire to be on camera. I have no desire to be out in front of things. I seem very comfortable speaking, and I love talking about the things I'm passionate about, but I have no desire to usurp any of the attention from actors or directors or anybody else who deserves it, really. And I think that my wife is always surprised because we'll go to parties or something and she'll think like, "Oh, you love this." And I really don't. I really have my social anxiety is like, I guess every writer is like that, but there are some writers who I think really like the limelight and kind of compete with their casts. And I don't do that at all. And I'm trying to think what else. I mean, again, like people who work for me, people who are great who work for me really, really excel because I give people a lot of kind of area for the spotlight. I always make sure to thank people and I thank my directors publicly and my cast and my writers and I think sometimes people are not comfortable getting that kind of attention, especially in other departments. But I really do like spreading kind of any type of fortune that I get. So,
Oh, yeah.
and I think people are surprised because I come off as just kind of a wise ass. Because because like now I'm talking and people say, "Oh, and there's a lot of in this business there's a lot of Schadenfreude. As you probably know, people really root against you, and I'm very, very open about the people I root against. I can't I'm not above that. I'm trying to work on myself to know that it's not a zero sum game. But it's a very, very competitive business. But I if I could just do create shows and kind of be behind the scenes and I would love that.
Yeah. Yeah. So what was your favorite childhood book?
It's very funny. So the first book I really read, well, oh, I'll tell you this. Well, the first book I remember reading, and I'm not a big reader, and I'm academic, and it's just weird because my father's a huge reader, and my daughter reads like a over a book a week. But I remember the first book I read was The Amityville Horror, and that really kept me up at night, especially since I live two towns over from Amityville. But I think that the books that were really influential on me were Catch 22 by Joseph Heller. I'd never read a book that was just that funny and that just evocative that I just quote to this day. If you haven't read it, I mean, it's obviously a masterpiece, but I just love that. And it's also, you realize that like that was his masterpiece and didn't really like the sequel wasn't that great. And whatever. You only have to do one thing. Sometimes I'll watch a show on TV. Like you look at there's these guys who created Cheers with the Charles brothers. They did one show, Cheers, and then they bought ranches out somewhere in the Midwest. And that's like the dream, like a mic drop moment. Like you create something, but it's very, very hard because you have an ego and you kind of want more and more and more. And I think that way, I felt that way about like Joseph Heller and Catch 22. I don't know if he felt that way. Um, but I just love that book. Woody Allen's Without Feathers is another book that is just so funny. Like books that just like really make me laugh and pull me in. And then, there's just so many classics. I really should read more and I don't. It's a casualty of kind of, I guess, the digital age.
Yeah, I really like reading, but it's very hard for me to focus on a book.
Yep, me
Uh,
too.
I like start reading and I'll get 2 pages in and then my mind just goes somewhere else.
It
So,
is really crazy. That's the same thing with me. I think that's a creative person's trait, maybe the ADHD. But and my son has it. I have it for sure. And you could probably notice how my eyes are. Zoom is terrible because actually Zoom is good because I notice I'm like, where are you looking? And I know that I had my wife got a book on ADHD, and I like just looked at it. I'm like, I'm never going to get through this. Like, and then it even says in the beginning, it says, if you have ADHD, just go to this page. And I was talking to somebody else about this, a friend of mine who said that he had a book on procrastination and it's still on his dresser. Yes, I was like, it's a book that you could print and don't ever have to put a single word on a page, and no one will.
yeah.
I thought that was so fantastic, and he wasn't even making a
Yeah.
joke. It was just fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah, my mom a while ago saw this video that kind of explained like a normal person's brain and like an ADHD brain, and she was telling me and my sister about it, and all three of us were like, yeah, that sounds like me.
Yeah. It's not, you're significantly, I mean, you're probably like my daughter's age, but growing up, there was like, that just meant being a kid. You were kind of like, everybody was kind of on their own anyway. Like I grew up in the 70s and 80s, and it's just like, there was no ADHD. I 100% would have been on, all the drugs I prescribe now, if I grew up with that. But it also made me it's a good trait for if you can master it, which I feel like I've done a pretty good job of. It's a really good trait for a creative person because you need a quick brain. You need like a sprinter's brain, especially when you're running a show. You have to do a million things at once. And I think that if you are somebody who gets versus like OCD, I think that's not a great trait to have, like as a showrunner. Because although there are people who have that too, they're perfectionists. It's just use a lot of energy. Like when I'm in production, my mind is like having 15 apps going at the same time. Like my battery is constantly wearing down. But I think like having ADHD is good for me because somebody can call me for wardrobe, somebody can call me down to the stage, somebody can call me into editing, and it's a very quick switch on my brain track. I honestly think it's a gift.
So, do you have any irrational fears?
Every fear I have is irrational. I come from a chain of 3,000 years of paranoia and anxiety, dating back to Mount Sinai. I'm really trying to work on compartmentalizing, like dealing with the stuff at hand that's in front of me. I tend to kind of I guess, catastrophize in my head and like go to the worst case scenario in anything, and it's not a healthy situation. I listen to these like lectures on just on having faith that like and really appreciating the moment and appreciating every day as a gift and what you have, and like you can get up in the morning, like the fact that I got out of bed in the morning and I walked the dogs and was able to breathe on my own, like those are you wouldn't trade. I have friends, who aren't able to do that, or the fact that like I have a house that's not consumed in flames. It's stupid for me to worry about things, but I do. And like I have a notes call later in a project, and I'm every notes call for me is just like, well, that's the end of it. I mean, and every good writer assumes that the last thing they wrote is going to be the last thing they ever wrote. And someday it'll be the last thing I ever write, but I don't think that's a good way to live. I mean, it's not like if you want to talk about phobias, yes, I'm afraid of lightning and bats. And when I visited my daughter, who was in seminary in Israel for a year, there was a lightning storm and they had bats, and it was just the perfect like
Oh.
the sky lit up and it was like Dracula, like these like
Oh.
gigantic bats. I'm like, are you kidding me? This is like the worst case scenario for me.
Yeah.
Um, so that was harrowing, but yes. So irrational, lightning and bats. Um, somewhat rational that, I'm any various calamity could happen at any moment, but I try not to live like that because it's not nice.
Yeah. I yeah, I can definitely relate to that. I have uh, also have a lot of anxiety and I have OCD, so my brain is kind of, I always joke that it's one big irrational fear because
Yes.
my mom and my sister always have to tell me when I'm like spiraling about something that it's not going to happen.
Yes.
And so
It's trauma, and it's sad to live that way because if you look back, and somebody told me a while ago, and again because of my procrastination ADHD, I never did it, but I know like the answer is a gratitude journal. I just know it. I just know like if you write down everything you're grateful for in a moment and you look and you write down the things that happened to you that were bad in the day, then it's going to be by far all the gratitude is gonna you're gonna say, wow, I wish I had that life. But we don't do it because I think the other thoughts are become intrusive.
yeah.
Like right now my son has stomach pain, so I go to the worst case scenario. I'm like web MD in my head. It's terrible. Really, at the end of the day, I think every fear is an irrational fear. I mean, yes, something bad's going to happen. There's going to be a last day, but in the meantime, like what a shame to throw away the ones on the way just because of that.
Yeah.
I'm going to play this
Definitely.
back so I could hear myself say it because I really don't. I have to internalize it. I have to say
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Yeah. So what has been the biggest obstacle you've overcome?
You know, I definitely grew up in say dysfunctional house. I grew up in a house of divorce, and my parents were split when I was 10 years old and my sister was 6 years old, and that's definitely a trauma, and that's why I say I'm very lucky I I don't think I picked it, but that I have a functional relationship with my wife and with my kids. I think it's really, and again, I'm a person of faith, so I think that you need help from God on everything that you do. I think I'm very happy that I asked God to help me with this stuff. But I think like that on a day-to-day basis, just knowing that, my sister and I are both comedy writers, and people are like, wow, both comedy writers. Your house must have been funny growing up. I was like, well, we also could have been serial killers. And you have to know that, I'm still very, very close to my dad. I love my dad and we lived with him. But, it's also it's hard growing up with a dad and my stepmom was great. But it's that was definitely a trauma. My sister wrote a book about it. And I don't, if I'm not gonna read a book, I'm not gonna write a book, that's for sure.
Mm.
But I think overcoming that and I think is on a day-to-day basis and really not, really acknowledging that that's a type of trauma. I mean, again, people have it a lot worse, but I think that on a day-to-day basis, like being a good man is really important to me. And I think being able to do that is I'm happy I've been able to achieve that.
Yeah, yeah. Um, what three words best describe you?
Word, like a three-word sentence or just like three words.
Like three
I,
words.
I'd say funny, emotional, and overreactive.
Hmm. I
And
like
usually,
those.
and usually they go together. And then followed by apologetic. I would say as a
Yeah.
bonus word, I have to be apologetic because I get, especially when I get anxious, I kind of go into like producer mode. Like people know like that if there's an issue, if you bring me an issue, I hire a lot of great people and I empower them to do things. And if they come to me with an issue, they know I was like, if you need a candle lit, I'm a flamethrower. Sorry for the imagery in LA now, but like I will come down with like the full. I'm the full Marines when you call me down to solve a problem. I will solve it, but it's just like a lot of times it has a lot more force to it than necessary, and not in a bad way. I'm not mean. I try not never to be mean. I'm just very, very direct and very, very blunt, and I know you didn't ask me what my self-criticism was, but I would say that.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So what, no matter how many times you see it, always takes your breath away?
Oh, that's something beautiful. Again, I think it's just like when I stop and just look at my life and my wife and my kids, I have to really stop and just be like, wow, I got really lucky. I got really, really, really lucky. And again, a lot of times I live in the anxiety of what can go wrong. And I think like when we're together for like a family dinner, and now that both kids are on the East Coast, and we have family dinner every Friday night. Sometimes it's just my wife and me. We have Shabbat dinner, and but when the kids are here, it's amazing, and it's just like I don't know what I did to deserve this, and I try to live in that moment because it's fleeting. But it's great. I love my wife and I also, we'll get up early and walk the dogs. And again, LA, is just beautiful. And like LA morning, now even now it's not smoky where I live, thank God, but like a lot of times we're just like, look where we live. Like this would be, and again, I know in the context of the terrible firestorms, it's hard to see this. But you know, a lot of times we'll get up in the morning and we'll walk. Every Saturday morning we get up early at 6:30. The dogs know when it's Saturday and and we walk the dogs and we just look around and we're like, can you believe this? Can you believe where we live? There's palm trees and there's like a warm breeze. It's like people come here on vacation and we live here,
Yeah.
and I think that is just like the natural beauty of LA again, which is will we grow again, God willing, but I think that always takes my breath away.
Yeah. Oh, I love that.
And
Yeah.
I could say that because you like LA, so.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's my favorite place in the world, so I always love when I go there with my family.
All right, well, you have to let me know next time you're here.
Okay, I will.
I'm guessing it probably won't be a little while because now it's not like, oh. let's see where we want to go. Let's
Yeah.
avoid the fire map. But I think I'm hoping, the next couple of
Yeah.
weeks, something that'll die down. And it's a rare weather pattern that we have now. And they said even like, I think even starting tomorrow, we're going to get like offshore winds. Usually the wind in LA, the wind blows in from the ocean, but we have Santa Ana winds that blow in from the hot desert, which are creating this. And they're like, that's why this is all happening. Usually you have like a
Yeah.
cool wind coming in. We're having a hot wind
Oh,
um,
yeah.
come in. That's my fire talk.
Mm.
That's all I know
Yeah.
about fires.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, but it's so crazy too, because it's like it's like anything else. Like rain could be like the biggest blessing, or it could be like a deluge, and the same thing, fire, and like the warm weather in LA is like we were at a friend's wedding the night before the fires, and we're out in January, and there's like such a warm breeze. Like you get like these like gusts of like warm air at night, and we're like up in the valley, and we're outside in January like just wearing like regular clothes, and you're just like, wow, we're the luckiest people on earth. And I think
Yeah.
that place has since been turned to ash, like, but that was like last week. Like it just, so you get the beauty of like LA and the weather. I think it'll be
Yeah.
fine. I think it's probably also
Yeah.
something. I'm guessing it's going to also be like a tourism thing too, to see the destruction. I'm not,
Mm.
obviously now it's insane to go down there,
Yeah.
because there's so many people that have to get there. But like, you see, where we live.
Yeah, we kind of feel like going there now is like what will help the economy. We want to like go there and support local businesses and
I think that's a really great idea. I went to Israel last December, right after, October 7th, and you got the feeling that just like, it was really nice for them to people, because people, LA is still a tourist economy, and people aren't, right now it's just triage. People are trying to put back the fires and get into their homes. But yes, but there's billions of dollars of businesses destroyed. My daughter, who lives in New York, is coming home to volunteer.
oh
She's going up
wow.
today. Yeah, so she's coming home to volunteer at like a shelter in Santa Monica. So
Oh wow.
yeah, that's really cool. A lot of people are doing that. I think
Yeah.
I mean, and you seem to live your life that way. So I think that would
Yeah.
be, I think you'd really benefit, and we'd benefit from having you here.
Yeah, I just want to yeah, be able to go and like support everyone and yeah, and see all my friends there.
Well,
So,
that's,
yeah.
we welcome you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's, this again, because we're like right in the middle of it now, but I think that that's going to be a big thing. Is the cleanup and I mean, crazily enough, we have the Olympics here in a few years, and I think maybe the World Cup or something. We have stuff coming up. So
Yeah.
I don't know. Hopefully we'll get it together by then.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm keeping my fingers crossed.
Thank you and welcome. And
Yeah.
again, you have to call here. If I find out you're here and you're not, didn't get in touch with me, I'm going to be very angry.
Okay, I promise I will.
Don't promise. It's fine.
I would love to see you.
Very nice.
So,
Very nice.
yeah. Um, so what lessons from your childhood have most impacted your worldview?
Um, my lessons from my childhood. I think it's the importance of family. I have a very, very strong grandmother, who kind of kept our family together, and because of that, we're still very, even though my immediate family was, a little broken because my parents didn't stay together. My grandmother, made sure that we stayed together as a family, and had holidays together, and respected the family, because I think at the end of the day, I think that's really important. I think that's why we have, out of my extended family, we're very, I'd say, high functioning, and have done a lot of good things, and not too crazy. And I mean, I have like crazy scientists in my family that have done a lot more than writing jokes, and very, very successful business people. But my cousin runs a dog shelter, and that's her life's work. And I have another cousin who kind of makes wigs for people who've lost their hair because of treatments. And I think we're just always very minded. We really believe in kindness, and the importance to stay together as a family. And I think if families stay together, I think that's everything spreads out from there.
Wow. Yeah.
I'm
So
hearing all these things. I'm hearing a lot of good things about myself. I like this interview, Maya. These are not the questions I usually get. I usually
yeah.
get who's your favorite friend? Like that those are the questions I usually get. These are really good, deep questions.
Oh, thank you.
Amazing. I was like, I look at people like, because I look at your thing and everyone's like, oh, Maya, I'm so happy to speak to you. I'm like, all right, these are the ones that she curated. Like, just at the end, say, Maya, I'm so happy to speak with you. But I see why people are really happy to speak with you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, you're really good at this.
Thank you so much. Um, so I am pop culture obsessed, and I go
Okay.
in stages of shows that I cannot stop binge watching. Is there a show that you are currently obsessed with?
Yes, there was, and I have to say that I'm very I, look, I'm a TV writer now, and this has been like a disastrous year for us. The strike, it just has eliminated. I mean, pressed fast forward on the industry that has been collapsing on its own under its own weight. So I don't, sadly, I don't have a lot of great shows that I'm watching right now, so I'm catching up on something. I urge your viewers to watch my show Shining Vale, which just moved to Max. So please binge that. That means a lot. We were on Stars, and then we were removed from Stars, and now we're on HBO Max. The most recent show that my wife and I discovered and watched was Slow Horses, which I loved. That was a show that I was like, oh, I wish I created that show because it was just very character driven and great performances. Um, Other than that, I'm really trying to find something to binge. Like, I started watching Perfect Family, but to me, that's just like what I imagine Pretty Little Liars is. Is that Pretty Little Liars? Not Pretty Little Liars. What's the other one with Nicole Kidman? Was that Pretty Little Liars?
Oh, no, that was The Undoing.
Oh, I don't know. No, it was the other one with like Reese Witherspoon and I don't know.
Oh, oh, Big Little
Bit of
Lies.
Little Lies. That's what I imagine
Yeah.
it's like. And it's really, I'm like kind of like, I'm really kind of hate watching that. Not that it's bad, but it's just like, it's just good enough to keep me on, and I'm getting annoyed with it. And I tried watching Silo also because that seemed like it would be very cool. And it's just, I can't get past the set and it's just very heavy-handed and very for me. And again, I admire anybody who can keep a show on the air. It's amazing. But I'm really looking for something. I also want something that makes me feel good watching it, you know what I mean? But that's like, intriguing. But yeah, my wife and I both, I tried watching Squid Game again. I love the first Squid Game, and it seems maybe because times are a lot darker now, it just seems very gratuitous for me and just not into it. I don't mean to bag on other people's work. I think anybody who
Yeah.
gets a show on TV it's talk about a miracle. But I don't know, what could you recommend? What are you watching?
Oh, well, I did when Shining Vale came on Max. I had been wanting to watch it since it came on, but my family and I don't get the stars.
By
So
the way,
when
yeah, you and everybody else in America, I had my publicist ask me for my Stars password. I was like,
I love that.
yeah.
Yeah, I've so there were two shows on Stars that I one came on Netflix last year and now Shining Vale on
Okay,
Max.
beautiful.
So yeah, so I have now binged watched both of those, and I just finished watching the new season of Goosebumps.
Oh, how's that?
Really good. Yeah.
I haven't
It's
seen that.
it's a really good show.
Oh,
It's
good.
creepy, but it's not like I don't know, it's funny too.
Okay,
So,
good.
yeah.
For me, I like a show that is just like has a very distinct point of view. Obviously, great acting and great writing and like a vision, like somebody who has a vision, a singular vision. I just like watching shows like that, that they're kind of doing it because they have to get this vision out. You know what I mean? Like they have a story they want to tell. I think that's really it. If I can find somebody who has a story they want to tell, because even if it's not my particular story that I necessarily relate to, if somebody has a story that comes through, like Baby Reindeers, like that guy had a story to
Yeah.
tell.
Yeah.
And I was like, I mean, that's incredible because he had a story to
Yeah.
tell and he told the story and it was very, very singular and it didn't, that's not like something that you pitch. I don't know how you'd ever pitch that and the execs would be like, that's really funny. Let's do that. Like it's just not, it's its own kind of element. I can't imagine there's going to be a sequel to that, but who knows? I thought that about Beef when I watched Beef. I loved Beef. Um, I thought, wow, that's like just a really singular vision. I love that. So I'm still looking. I'm still looking. I'm hoping that my sister and I create the next one.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I recently started rewatching for like the millionth time rewatching Trial and Error. So
Well, thank you.
yeah. So that's also my current binge watch. So
Thank you. I every time I turn that on, it's just like I have good memories from it. There's not a, and that was like really the first show I kind of did on my own. So it was like it was I knew as soon as it ended, I was like, wow, I should have spent more time on the stage. Like I should like I had a chance to be with John Lithgow for 13 episodes. I should have really, really spent that time because he was, I mean, they were all masters, but like that's what the good thing about second season was. I got to go to Vancouver, and because I was living up there with the actors, for 10 weeks, I got to spend a lot of time with them, which was really, really great. And it was a real family show, and it was, and I hope that comes across. It was just like we just loved doing it.
yeah. Oh, I love that.
And by the way, Shining Vale also. I mean, Shining Vale is tough because we did COVID the first season, but like the cast was very, very, very close. I mean, it was a very ambitious show and very, very difficult to do, and certainly totally different. But great cast, great people. That's another group that I'll just get on the chat with and just start talking, and everybody just starts chiming in, and especially a lot of them live in LA, so there's a lot going on with the fires. But I
Yeah.
text with Courtney a lot, and Mira and Greg and Gus and all of them.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, they're good
Yeah,
people.
sorry, what?
No, they're just good people, and it's really, they really trusted in the process and trusted me, and I trusted them, and it was fun. It's sad when the show gets canceled, like especially when you still have story to tell, but that's the
Yeah.
business I've chosen.
I'm actually interviewing Gus Burney
Oh
in
my
a couple
gosh.
weeks.
Oh, I am You're going to love Gus. Gus is going to love you too, of course.
Oh,
But yes,
thank
Gus
you.
is. I like my kids. I tell people who are my favorites, and Gus was oftentimes my favorite. I really wanted the world to see what a star she is. I mean, she's amazing. Absolutely, absolutely a gigantic fan of Gus's in every possible way.
I love that.
Please tell her I said that. I'm sure you will.
I will, yes.
Yeah, she's terrific.
Yeah.
Also, incredibly humble and just like just I mean she's a kid. It's really fun. You're going to see that like when you interview her, like she comes off as so tough, and she's just not that way at all. Like talk about somebody who had a stretch for their character. I mean she was just you'll see she's the sweetest person you'll ever meet.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I am so excited to talk with her. Yeah. Um, so what are the songs that make you sing along whenever you hear them?
So that's a great question, Maya. I don't think you've asked a dud yet. I just watched one thing I just watched, which my sister begged me to watch. I was like, how could this be a documentary? Is the documentary on yacht rock. And I know it is a cliche, but any yacht rock song I will jam to. And my wife always tells a story that the first time she met me in my house for a date, the first date we went on, I guess I was getting ready, I was in the shower or something. She came to the door and I was singing the Partridge Family, I Think I Love You, at the top of my lungs. And she hesitated to knock on the door. She's like, oh, he's gonna be embarrassed, but she knocked anyway. And then I came out and was still singing it. And so she's like, oh my God, this guy's a weirdo. And that should have been our wedding song. But so that song is one of my favorites. Really, I love so many of the songs from the 70s. I always be watching. Always just the same joke with my wife when, just some song from the 70s comes on, some like bread song, and I'll be like, "Do you mind if I play a little rock and roll music?" And it's just like these guys, just these like so soft. Like I was too young to really have come age in the 70s. I was very young in the 70s, but man, oh man, that was a good time to be kind of a wuss because every guy was just so soft. And I'll sing Sharing the Night Together to my wife, and it'll kind of disgust her a little bit. We went to I'll also sing at the top of my lungs the Wicked soundtrack, but I did not the theater, did not. Despite every urge I had to the contrary, I did not
Yeah.
sing. But Billy Joel also, I love Billy Joel, grew up with Billy Joel, Springsteen. But yes, all of those songs, my wife and I went to a Rod Stewart concert last year. And it's very funny because it's just like frozen in time. I mean, he's 80 something years old and he's like just ogling girl. He's just like, I said, like, Shiny, just my wife's name, just like, enjoy. This is the last time you're going to be able to see this much sexual harassment on stage. I mean, because he just every song is like, and so many of the songs from that era are just so inappropriate, not in the way that today's are, but it's just everybody was open about wanting to make love or just fool around, and it was just like you just ask a girl if she wanted to spend the night, if she minded spending the night together. It's like, you look lonely, I'm lonely, let's spend the night together. And then of course the girls in the background would go, oh yeah, spending the night together, would you mind spending the night? Oh yeah, would you mind? So yes, that song, any Dr. Hook song I'll sing along with. um Cat Stevens, Gordon Lightfoot. Yes. Not super edgy.
I love that. Yeah. Yeah, there's so many songs, yeah, that I just no matter what where we are, I will just start singing them if they come on.
Always, 100%. I always joke with my wife because we'll be listening to, some 70s station. I'll be like, if there's a bad song from the 70s, I haven't heard it. And obviously there are a couple, but only a couple. And I'll say that with like, you know, oh, now I can't even think the group, Little River Band. I was like, if Little River Band made a bad song, I haven't heard it. And of course, because the five songs that they sang. But same thing with Paul Simon, Simon and Garfunkel. Don't get me started. It will sing us out.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, yeah, one of my favorite singers is Ben Platt, and
Sure.
whenever I think I know pretty much like every word to pretty much every one of his songs. So I just no matter what, if
That
I'm
Dear Evan Hansen, did you
yeah, I
so my
love
daughter
that.
loves that. So Ben Platt, my almost interview, my almost run-in with Ben Platt is I did a show called Ground Floor a few years ago, which also I loved. And Skylar Aston was the star of that. And he
Oh, yeah.
wanted to get his best friend Ben Platt to be on the show, and Ben had to do something else. It might have been even Dear Evan Hansen. I don't know if that was his first. Was that his first big thing? Was his first big thing
Yeah,
that kind of.
that was his like breakout role.
And he was so apologetic that he couldn't get. It was like a three-line thing, and he
Oh,
was so apologetic that he couldn't do it, and because he was in on Broadway for Dear Evan Hansen, and but also supposedly super nice guy.
yeah. Oh,
Now I'm
that's
sorry.
so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually well I two things. One, I interviewed Skylar
Oh,
a
really?
few years ago. Yeah, and
How
he's
long have you been
just
doing this?
I started interviews, I think it was like 2017.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Amazing.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, so I interviewed Skylar actually during lockdown in 2020.
Good
And
guy, right, Skylar?
yeah, he
Super cool.
is. Yeah, he's
Have you? You don't have
awesome.
to say who, but have you? I guess you wouldn't though. No one would agree to come on with you. Have you interviewed anybody that was like, wow, they're kind of contentious, or no? Like who would go on an interview with you and be contentious? Or people that you were like looking forward to meet that were like, oh, don't meet your heroes, or everybody you get something out of everybody.
Yeah, thankfully I mean, everybody I've talked with has been like so nice and like exceeded my expectations. So
I feel like I'm at your expectations yet. I haven't exceeded them yet. Let me know what I have to do to exceed, unless you had very low expectations.
Okay. No, I think you have exceeded my expectations
Ah,
because,
beautiful.
yeah, I have been so excited to talk with you.
As you can see, I like talking.
Well, I love that. I love just having a conversation. And yeah, and I actually my family and I went over this summer. We saw Ben Platt live because he came to Denver on tour, and
Oh,
it's
nice.
always been my dream to interview him and see him live. And we saw him live, and as soon as he came on stage, I just immediately started crying.
Oh, that's so. And did you get to see him afterwards? Did you get to meet him afterwards?
No.
You didn't tell him that you were going to be there?
I haven't interviewed him yet.
Oh,
So,
you haven't. Okay.
yeah, I've been trying.
It
Yeah.
makes me uncomfortable. I don't want people to think I'm as tan as this light is making me seem. That's the takeaway because I really have your coloring, and it's just like this makes me look like I'm like on the beach here or fighting fires or something. My skin tone, but now I can't change it. If I change it, I feel like it's gonna be too shocking. We'll have to do the interview over again. So I just want to, for the record, disclaimer: I'm not this rosy usually.
Okay. Yeah. I know my mom always calls me a ghost because I'm always so pale.
My my daughter is also, and I always say like I love those white stockings, and she's like, Daddy, stop it. Like whenever I see her legs, I'm like, I said, this is really nice. Are white stockings back in? And she'll be. But by the way, that's probably you could tell that's what her color is. Like I don't know what my color is. Like I guess certainly not this. What are you looking at now? This is this is a friendly zoom light.
Yeah. Um, so what small things bring you joy on a daily basis?
So I'm like I said, I'm religious, and I learn every day with a group of guys. That's fantastic. Every morning I wake up early, 6 o'clock, and we learn together, and it's like just a great way to start my day. And I love that. I wake up every morning just with a roar, and thank God for being alive. And I'm so always happy to see my wife in the morning, and like. And but really, I think the question you're asking is coffee.
Yeah.
And it's yes, maybe specifically creamer, but I love coffee. I really do. I don't want to get deep and philosophical, but coffee.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. Um, Coffee definitely brings me joy too.
It really does. Sometimes I'll be like, why am I so happy? And I'll look, I'm like, oh. Mm.
Yeah.
But yes, I love it. It's a miracle drug.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, so how do you keep yourself motivated on days you aren't feeling it?
That's a great question. Again, like I said, I've tried to compartmentalize and say, okay, what do I have to get done today? I always have to, I mean, it's also a benefit of being anxious. I try to let my anxiety propel me as opposed to drag me down and make me hide. Like if I'm anxious about something, it's like, okay, I had a very good interview. I have a very good, income last 7 years. I was at Warner Brothers under a deal, and then my deal ended. And so I went from a very nice amount to zero, which is a big drop. And so it's been like, now since May without like a regular income, and that is very, very difficult for me. And so I'm just like, okay, what's the next step? What's the thing that I have to do? Like, I have a show that I'm working on. I'm like, what do I have to do today for that? Like, do that. You could once you get this done, you could reward yourself. Go on the Peloton, go for a walk, take a nap, have another cup of coffee, but like I really try to like just like compartmentalize myself, just like look what's right ahead of me. What do I have to do? And I do that when I'm running a show also. Is like, what I have to do this morning, what I have to do the day, what I have to do the week. Like what's my schedule like? And doing stuff like this is great because it gives me something to do. Like you want to be busy. I remember my dad said that like you want something done, ask a busy person. Like, and I really try to stay busy and that just, because it doesn't matter. There's so many things that are out of your control. Like, I don't know when, I'll have my next show on the air. God willing, it'll be next year. I'm working on a show with my sister that's so far looks very good, and I'm trying to pitch other things and other ideas, but you don't know when that's going to happen. I'm very lucky that I have a very good mind in terms of writing and coming up with ideas. Not all of them sell, and this is like the first time in my career this past year where I went out with a project that didn't sell, and it was just like it's very humbling, and you wonder, wow, is this over? And you just got to keep going. I mean, eventually, I just read an article this guy Joel Stein wrote, like how to know when the career you've chosen is over, and it's really like I've had a very good run. I've been working for 31 straight years or 32 straight years. And you never want to see, oh no, what if that's over? But you have to also make contingency plans. Like, what if that's over? What do you do next? And so that's kind of like I I think it's just kind of staying ahead of it, trying not to be surprised by things and trying to be proactive. I think that in terms of being creative, my job is being creative, as I'm sure like you can't, sometimes you're just in a groove, and sometimes an idea will come to you in the middle of the night or in the middle of the day, or you're driving and you're taking a walk and you're like, wow, that's fantastic. And other times you have to really, really work for it. And I always, if I'm writing, I try to write, just get something down. And it's difficult because it's a muse, you know what I mean? Like it comes from above, it comes from somewhere else. I don't know that anybody creative really can take credit for it. So, I'm just very, very grateful that like, recently I've been able to be creative, but that's the thing, is just to keep working. Fake it till you make it. That's my thing. I tell
Yeah.
my kids that all the time. If you
Yeah.
want something, when I'm a showrunner, there's a couple of people that I emulate that I'm like, just be that person. I'm not that person. I'm not organized like that. I don't think that quickly. I'm not decisive like that. So I pretend to be a person who is that. That's my answer. If you take nothing away from this interview, and you may not, kids out there,
Yeah.
fake it till you make it, and look for somebody who's a role model who does something and be that person in that moment.
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
And get
Yeah.
a good ring light, because this is fantastic. I may just keep this on with me all the time.
Yeah. Um, so I just have one more question for
Okay.
you. I love inspiring and motivational quotes. And this week, my favorite quotation is if you don't change it, you choose it.
Oh, I
Is
love that.
Yeah. Yeah. Is there a quotation that has inspired you lately?
I always go back to King Solomon's "This too shall pass," and it was the story behind that was like he wanted so the wisest of all men wanted somebody to come up with a saying on a ring that would kind of, when things were too great, it would kind of bring him down, but when things were bad, it would bring him up, and this too shall pass. Like, so I try to live in the moment. That helps me live in the moment, to know it's very, very difficult for me, and I think for a lot of people, to think that, to get out of the kind of trap to think that what's going on now is going to be like this forever. I thought I'd be working straight continuous forever. Every show I've ever done, I imagine would last for 10 years and then I would be done with it. And that's never happened, And then on other times when I'm not working or when, I'm not feeling well or something like that, I'm like, oh no, this is how life is. So I think that that's like, it's like, nope, it's going to get better. I mean, and that's all there is.
Yeah. I like that one. Yeah. Um, that was my final question for you. I have had the best time talking with you. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. You had the second best time. I had the best time.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Um, yeah, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. Amen. And you too. And all good things
Thank
to you,
you.
Maya, and tremendous success and blessing and health and everything should go your way.
Oh, thank you so much.
Okay. And I look forward to speaking to you when you get out to LA.
Yes, I can't wait.
Good.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay.
Um, thank you. And that's a wrap on today's edition of the latest with Maya.